to politics right now and welcome in our first guest in the 7 o'clock hour. House Democrats are voting today to drop Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from her committee assignments in the House of Representatives. She is a freshman congresswoman from Georgia. This week, after allegedly amplifying conspiracy theories about the 9/11 attacks and the Parkland school shooting in Florida. Our next guest introduced an amendment that replaces the congresswoman's name with another name, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. Joining us now to talk about this, Texas Congressman and dentist Brian Babin. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for being with us. I applaud you for doing this. It takes courage to do that. I'm just wondering why you didn't add several other names like Ayanna Pressley, who has called Republican members of the GOP white supremacists, Eric Swalwell, who a few years ago was sleeping with a Chinese spy, and how about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's also calling members of the GOP in the House white supremacists and white nationalists?
Well, exactly. You're exactly right. We could have substituted a number of Democrat names. And I just think that the Democrats are venturing out onto very, very thin ice here because they're not going to be in the majority forever. And they need to realize that not allowing the minority party to take care of their own internal problems is a very, very bad precedent and a step to take that will come back and bite them eventually. And quite frankly, it's like two football teams, and the opposing side decides they don't like what one of the other opposing players says, so they take him out of the lineup. It's unprecedented and it's dangerous, and we should be allowed to take care of our own folks. That's exactly what we will wind up doing. But it looks to me like, because I went before the Rules Committee yesterday to make my amendment. And talked with the Democrats. They think that they're doing the right thing. I'm telling them they have a double standard. If it's good enough for the goose, it's good enough for the gander. And I don't agree with everything that Ms. Greene has said. I'm not sure that she even has said a lot of the things that she's alleged to have said. But I do have a list of things that Ms. Omar has said since she's been elected. And I think some of them are just over the top. And so I would never have brought this amendment up had they not been doing this to one of our own and trying to take out one of the opposing party's team members from there. She was a duly elected. I mean, she needs to be accountable to her constituents. Yeah. The 750,000 people in her Georgia district are the ones that should make that decision. Or it should be within her own conference, the Republican conference, not the opposing party that happens to be in the majority at the time.
Congressman, I think so many people out there agree with you right now. I know you represent 9 counties in parts of southeast Texas, the Lone Star State. I'll tell you what, don't forget Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's a freshman in the House. I understand that. She got 75% of the vote. Her constituents knew some of the conspiracy theories that were out there. They knew all that when they went to the polls on November 3rd, and she won, 75% of the vote is pretty darn significant. So, her constituency has spoken, and that should speak for itself. But the bar is so low now with not only censuring members of the House and Senate and removing them from committees, but how about impeachment? Congressman, I was under the impression that the point of impeachment was to remove somebody from office, but apparently I missed something and that's changed.
Hey, I looked it up this morning. The definition of impeachment is to charge a public office holder with misconduct. Mr. Trump is no longer a public office holder.
Right.
And it is absurd, and it is divisive, and it is absolutely the wrong thing to be doing at this point in time when President Biden, he talks out of one side of his mouth about the unity that needs to be had in this country, and we all need to walk together and do things for the American people, and then out of the other side of his mouth, he pushes this kind of stuff. And Ms. Pelosi and Schumer are doing the exact same thing. This is not what this country needs at this point in time. President Trump, I really think he did. He was actually in the middle of his speech, blocks and blocks away when the breach of the Capitol occurred. He was telling his supporters to go peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol And I don't think that you can actually tag him with this, even if he were still in office. He has gotten no due process. There's no way in this country the Constitution mandates that you get due process, that you have witnesses, that you can look at your accusers in the eye and be charged with something that at least has some evidence, and we're not seeing that. And this is number 2.
Yeah, it's number 2 in 13 months, which is unbelievable. Congressman, I want to quickly ask you about our executive order in chief. President Biden has signed over 40 executive orders. I was kind of under the impression that the cleanest way to transport energy anywhere on the planet would be via pipeline versus doing it by ship, freighter, train, or truck. President Biden has ended construction of the border wall, which affects your state. He has ended the Keystone Pipeline, which eliminates thousands of jobs. And he now wants a clear path to citizenship for 11 million foreign nationals. Let's be honest. The plan here is to try and turn Texas blue at some point and make it so there's never a Republican president again.
There is no question about that at all. The agenda he has is the agenda of the radical wing of the Democratic Party. And that's exactly what they want to do. They want to allow as many people into this country illegally, put them on a path to citizenship, and they will vote overwhelmingly for the Democrats. That's the bottom line. That is the absolute bottom line here. And, you know, we had a great, I represent more petrochemical refining facilities than anyone else in this country. I've got 4 ports, the Houston Ship Channel. I've got the Port of Houston. Yeah. And the executive orders that this president has come out are just overwhelmingly the most of any president in history, putting so many people out of work, especially hurting my section of the state, the 9 counties that I represent, and quite frankly, many other states that are oil and gas producers. And it's pie in the sky to try to shut down oil and gas. And tell us that we need to get on electric cars, wind and solar. It just cannot be done. That's an impossibility.
Congressman, I appreciate your time. We're very tight on time. I will say you make a great point. The vice president and president are both from the coast, Delaware and California, respectively. They don't care about the flyover states. They surely don't care about the good people in the middle of this country that make America great, and especially the people in Texas in the 36th district. Thank you so much, Congressman, for your time. We appreciate it. Come back and see us soon.
Thank you, Rob.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to yield 1 minute to the distinguished majority leader of the House of Representatives, Mr. Hoyer.
This is a sad day and a difficult day for the House of Representatives and for our country. I have heard some condemnation from across the aisle of the contents of Representative Green's statements. Some have condemned the white supremacist and anti-Semitic things she said and posted online. Some have condemned the falsehoods she shared about 9/11 and the horrific school shootings. But I have heard little from Republicans about the horrific statements made by their colleague making threats of violence against Democratic elected officials and her threatening conduct towards Representative Bush and others. Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to look at this image. I heard about motherhood today. 2 of those women, between them, have 6 children. They're mothers. One of them does not have children. And she's come to this body asking for more housing for people, for more health care for people, for more income for people. How awful. And this is an AR-15 in the hands of Ms. Green. This was on Facebook just a few months ago. That is a message of peace and reconciliation and peaceful democratic dialogue. The squad's worst enemy, AR-15, in hand. Is that what was intended to do? That each one of these ladies would have a nightmare about somebody with a gun? But there are many other reasons we're here today. In 2019, during the same election cycle in which she ran, showed support for comments online that the quickest way to remove Speaker Pelosi from power would be, and I quote, a bullet to the head.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to be here today. But what I feel and what I believe as I'm listening and I'm hearing the debate is this is not really about words said by Ms. Green before she was ever elected overwhelmingly in her district. Because if it was about language and that we were disciplining because of language, we would have disciplined somebody else from this side on the Democrat side who said, Israel's hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. It's all about the Benjamins, baby. That would have invoked some discipline, I would have thought. How about this one? Comparing Jewish Israeli settlers to termites. That guy didn't get disciplined. He's still on the committees I sit on. He said there's been a steady stream, almost like termites can get into a residence and eat before you know that you've been eaten up and you fall in on yourself. It goes on. It goes on. The Speaker of this House has said Republicans are enemies of the state. All of these incite to violence. All of these demean. All of these dehumanize. All of these are these are statements that just should not be accepted. But they were accepted. There was no condemnation. And as the last speaker just said, no condemnation is an endorsement. So I guess there's endorsement from all of them on those statements. And so here we are today. And you're doing something that's unprecedented. You're taking somebody for things she said before she got into this body. And you're saying we're going to control the minority choice of committee assignments. Never happened before, but here it goes. And I'm afraid it's going to cascade because that's not the way we should do this. You can't take away the rights of the minority leader and the minority conference. That is the problem that we have here. No one endorses what Ms. Green said, but we endorse her election and the right of the leader to make her committee assignments, not to have those be taken away by the majority. I yield back. Thank you.
Recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Clyde.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to oppose this unprecedented power grab orchestrated by the Democrats. Much has been said about what my colleague from Georgia has spoken of in her past, but the past is past. I do not believe Congress has jurisdiction to relitigate what a member of this body said before they took their solemn oath of office. That is an issue to be adjudicated by her constituents at the ballot box in the 14th District of Georgia, not here in Congress. Without question, this body is putting itself on an extremely dangerous path, a path that opens the door to allowing the majority party to strip the minority party members of their committees based on statements made or beliefs held before holding office. It is clear the resolution before us is not about my colleague. It is about Democrats seizing upon an opportunity to further suppress the rights of the minority party, to silence a bold member of the opposition, and to thereby further their socialist agenda. Members of Congress have a duty to uphold themselves to the highest standards, and I know Marjorie is doing just that. I expect no less from my Democratic colleagues, which is why this resolution must not pass. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this is personal to me. I've dedicated so much of my adult life to the Constitution of the United States. And if you go back to 1884, it's been cited for about 80 or 100 years even, a select committee back in 1884 was taking up the issue of a member of Congress being expelled, and the committee said that because the conduct was committed during an earlier Congress, it must be said that with practical uniformity, the precedents in such cases are to the effect the House will not expel a member for reprehensible action prior to the election of a member, not even for conviction of an offense. That has been so frequently decided in the House that it's no longer a matter of dispute. And yes, that was expelling from the House, but you're wanting to expel a member from being a full member as she was elected to do. Now, James Madison, hopefully that name rings a bell, said if the legislature could regulate those, talking about qualifications, which in this case would mean you got to meet our qualifications for what you say before you're a member of Congress, or you don't come in. And he said if you could regulate those qualifications, it can be by degrees subvert the Constitution. A republic may be converted into an aristocracy or an oligarchy, as well as limiting the number capable of being elected. Qualifications founded on artificial distinctions may be devised by the stronger party in order to keep out partisans of a weaker party. This is so dangerous. Never in the history of the Congress has a majority party been taking such fanatical action to remove somebody from the other party from committees. This is unprecedented. You know, we had a senator named Biden who looked at a Ku Klux Klan recruiter as a mentor and friend, and you punished him by inaugurating him as president. Look, please, I know there's so many good, decent Democrats. We disagree on a lot of things, but as a matter of conscience, you talk about conscience, you got to know if you do this, just like Democrats objecting to electors and then coming around later and say, oh, you're disenfranchising voters. Look, if you do this, you know the day will come when Republicans will not like something you said and start removing you from committees. This is not a road to go down. I beg you, please don't start this precedent. It won't end well for either party, but we will follow your lead if you lead. I'm imploring you, do the right thing. Vote no on this resolution. I yield back.